You swallowed about 5 grams of plastic last week, roughly the weight of a credit card, and most of it is still inside you right now. That's not a scare headline. That's the estimate from peer-reviewed environmental research, and in 2026, the numbers are getting worse, not better. Because while you were drinking your morning coffee, eating lunch from a takeout container, and breathing ordinary city air, microscopic plastic fragments were quietly slipping through your gut wall, hitching a ride in your bloodstream, and settling into organs your body has no idea how to clean. Your brain, your liver, your lungs, your heart, even your reproductive organs. Microplastics have been confirmed inside all of them, and the concentrations are climbing faster than anyone predicted. So in this video, we're going to trace the full journey of a microplastic particle from the moment it enters your mouth to the moment it lodges deep inside your tissue. And I'm going to show you what the latest science says it's actually doing once it gets there. By the end, you'll understand 5 specific changes you can make starting today to dramatically cut your exposure. To understand why 2026 feels like a turning point, you need to see the numbers. Humanity now produces over 400 million metric tons of plastic every single year. Less than 10% gets recycled. The rest breaks down in landfills, in oceans, and in the air, into fragments smaller than 5 millimeters. That's the technical definition of a microplastic. And many shatter further into nanoplastics, particles so small they're measured in billionths of a meter. A study published in Nature Medicine in early 2025 by researchers at the University of New Mexico did something no team had done at this scale before. They measured microplastic concentrations in human brain, liver, and kidney tissue from autopsy specimens, and compared samples from 2016 to samples from 2024. The brain concentrations in 2024 were roughly 50% higher than they were just 8 years earlier. Let that land for a second. In under a decade, the amount of plastic inside the human brain increased by half. And the brain isn't even where we're exposed. It's protected behind the blood-brain barrier, which means these particles are small enough and persistent enough to cross one of the body's most defended borders. Let's start with the gut, because that's where most microplastics first enter the body. Every time you eat food stored in plastic packaging, drink from a plastic bottle, or use a plastic cutting board, tiny fragments shed into your meal. Once swallowed, particles smaller than 10 micrometers can slip between the tight junctions of your intestinal lining and enter the bloodstream directly. Research published in early 2026 mapped microplastic distribution across 7 human organs using AI-enhanced Raman imaging. The small intestine showed one of the highest concentrations, about 61 particles per gram of tissue, dominated by polypropylene fragments, the same polymer used in most food containers and bottle caps. From the gut, microplastics ride the portal vein straight into the liver, your body's central filtration factory. The liver showed the highest particle abundance of any organ tested, around 65 particles per gram, with the smallest particle sizes. Think of it this way. Your liver is designed to catch and neutralize toxins, so it catches microplastics too, but it can't break them down. They just accumulate, triggering chronic, low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress in the surrounding hepatocytes. The kidneys tell a similar story. As your blood filters through the glomeruli, those tiny capillary clusters inside each nephron, microplastic fragments get trapped along the tubules and basement membranes. Kidney concentrations sat around 59 particles per gram. The particles are small enough to evade clearance, but large enough to irritate tissue. And animal studies show they activate the NF-kappa-B inflammatory pathway, which over time can degrade filtration efficiency. Now, here's where it gets truly unsettling. The brain. The University of New Mexico study found that human brain tissue contained 7 to 30 times more microplastic mass per gram than the liver or kidneys, a median of nearly 5,000 micrograms per gram in 2024 samples. And in brains from people diagnosed with dementia, the concentrations were roughly 5 times higher still. The plastic in the brain is overwhelmingly polyethylene, the same material used in grocery bags and cling wrap. And it shows up as nanoscale shards, typically less than 200 nanometers long. These shards were found clustered along cerebrovascular walls and embedded within immune cells called microglia. A 2026 study confirmed that microplastics actually weaken the blood-brain barrier, making it leaky, which then allows inflammatory molecules and even more particles to flood in. Your lungs are vulnerable through a completely different route: inhalation. Every breath pulls in airborne microfibers shed from synthetic clothing, car tires, and industrial dust. Lung tissue samples showed the largest individual particles of any organ, some over 150 micrometers, because the airways physically trap bigger fragments that can't be cleared by the mucociliary escalator. These sharp-edged fragments can directly damage alveolar epithelium, sparking inflammation and potentially driving fibrotic scarring. And then there's the heart. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2024 examined carotid artery plaque removed during surgery. Nearly 60% of patients had detectable microplastics embedded in their arterial plaque, and those patients were 4.5 times more likely to suffer a heart attack, stroke, or death within 3 years compared to patients whose plaque was plastic-free. 4.5 times. The reproductive system hasn't been spared either. Microplastics have been detected in human testes, semen, follicular fluid, and placental tissue. A 2024 study found that men with higher concentrations of certain plastics, particularly PTFE, the material in non-stick coatings, had significantly lower sperm counts. Microplastics have even been found inside the placenta, raising serious questions about prenatal exposure before a child ever takes their first breath. So why can't our bodies just eliminate these particles? The answer comes down to biochemistry. Your immune system recognizes microplastics as foreign invaders and dispatches macrophages to engulf them, the same cells that swallow bacteria. But unlike bacteria, plastic doesn't break down. The macrophage essentially chokes on it, swelling into a state of chronic activation that releases a constant stream of pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. That's the mechanism behind what researchers now call plasticosis, a state of persistent, low-grade tissue inflammation driven specifically by plastic particle accumulation. It's not acute, you don't feel it happening, but over years and decades, this smoldering inflammation accelerates the same pathways linked to heart disease, neurodegeneration, liver fibrosis, and certain cancers. And the chemicals riding along make things worse. Microplastics act as tiny sponges, absorbing heavy metals, pesticides, flame retardants, and endocrine-disrupting chemicals from the environment. When the particle lodges in tissue and begins degrading, those hitchhiker toxins leach directly into the surrounding cells. A kind of slow-release chemical poisoning at the cellular level. The urgency has finally reached governments. In April 2026, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services launched STOMP, the Systematic Targeting of Microplastics Program, backed by $144 million in funding through ARPA-H. The program's mission is to develop affordable tools for detecting microplastics inside the human body, understand how they accumulate, and ultimately find ways to remove them. That's historic. It's the first time a major government has committed this level of funding specifically to measuring and addressing microplastic contamination inside people, not just in the ocean or in drinking water. But you don't need to wait for a federal program to start protecting yourself. Here are 5 evidence-based changes you can make right now to significantly cut your daily microplastic intake. First, stop drinking from plastic bottles. A single 1-liter plastic water bottle can release over 240,000 detectable micro and nanoplastic fragments. Switch to stainless steel or glass. This alone may be the single highest impact change you can make. Second, Never heat food in plastic. Microwaving in plastic containers dramatically accelerates particle shedding. Use glass or ceramic containers for reheating. Even transferring leftovers out of plastic before storing them in the fridge helps, because cold temperatures slow but don't stop the shedding. Third, filter your drinking water. A high-quality activated carbon or reverse osmosis filter can remove a significant portion of microplastic particles from tap water. Boiling water before filtering has also shown promise. A 2024 study found boiling precipitates calcium carbonate crystite crystals that physically trap microplastics, removing up to 90% of them. Fourth, choose natural fibers for clothing when possible. Synthetic fabrics like polyester, nylon, and acrylic shed thousands of microfibers with every wash and every wear. These become airborne in your home and enter your lungs. Cotton, linen, wool, and hemp shed far fewer plastic particles. Fifth, reduce processed and plastic packaged food. Fresh produce, bulk grains, and food stored in glass contain measurably fewer microplastic particles than their plastic-wrapped counterparts. Cutting boards should be wood or bamboo, not plastic. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We cannot eliminate microplastic exposure entirely. Not in 2026, and probably not for decades. These particles are in the rain, in the soil, in the deepest ocean trenches, and now confirmed inside nearly every human organ ever tested. The crisis isn't coming, it's already here, and it's been quietly building inside you for your entire life. But the science is equally clear that reducing your exposure matters. Every plastic bottle you don't drink from, every container you swap to glass, every filter you install, that's fewer particles reaching your liver, your kidneys, your brain, and your bloodstream. The dose still makes the poison, and the dose is something you can control. If this video helped you understand what's happening inside your body, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Share it with someone who still microwaves food in plastic. They need to see this. And drop a comment below telling me which of the 5 steps you're going to start with. I read every single one. Stay informed, stay protected, and I'll see you in the next one.